the fundamentals of computers. So we will be learning so many things about fundamentals of computers, and we will be going deep into fundamentals of computers. As the previous class was all about CPU, that is central processing unit, and the main components of CPU, today we will be going into the main thing, that is memory. When I tell memory, the memory is the most important thing that you have to remember, because without the memory, nothing can be stored or nothing can be displayed on your monitor, because everything that requires is the memory. Because without the memory, you can never ever calculate anything in your computers. So remember about the memory. So before we go ahead today in knowing about the memory, I just want to communicate with you all about the descriptions and the fundamentals of the computers with inside the deep knowledge of the memory. So today I am going to explain you the most important thing, and I want each and everybody to have a note on it if possible, or remember thoroughly, so that whenever there is a question popping on the memory, you should be able to answer that type of questions. Alright, so before going ahead with the class, let me wish you a very good morning. Alright, so now let me see the first thing that you have to remember when it comes to the memory. So before we know about the memory, what is memory and what is the computer memory? So let us go through the slides once again. So here we go with computers and its memory. A memory is just like a human brain. It is used to store data and instruction. Computer memory is the storage space in computer where data to be processed and instructions required for processing are stored. The memory is divided into large number of small parts. Each part is called cell. Each location or cell has a unique address which varies from 0 to memory size -1. So now let me go to the first point once again. A memory is just like a human brain. It is used to store data and instruction. Computer memory is the storage space in computer where data to be processed and instructions required for processing are stored. So now, what does this mean? When I say computer memory is like a human brain and computer memory is a storage space in a computer. So when I speak about the initial memory of the computer, I just want to brief you exactly what is the memory of the computer, or what does this memory do in a computer. As I have said you, it just plays an important role, same like our brain. So what does our brain do? Our brain takes the instructions, calculates the instructions, and it will store some data. For example, if I ask you suddenly, which school did you study in your 7th class? So you are going to just recollect and then going to say which school you would study, because your brain have the capacity of restoring or storing the data and ability to say that anytime by taking out the previous data. So that's what I just want to tell you. Computer is also same like a human brain, because it saves a lot of instructions and the data so that we can see that anytime we want, and we can go through it anytime we require. So this is the most important thing that you have to remember when I was talking about the first thing. And I also have missed one more important thing in the first point. As I have said you, it processes the instructions required for the processing. For example, let me say you this. When you were going for a school, when you are going for your school, you have to pay your fees, isn't it? So how much fees did you pay in your school, or whatever fees was supposed to pay to the school, your father or your mother, your parents would be giving you the money. So this money will be paid by you to the school, right? So you are also a memory here in the computer. So a computer remembers whatever required memory for the processing of instructions also. For example, if I want to download something or to upload something, the setup files, yes, the setup files are also being stored in this memory, so that anytime we require to update or anytime we need to update our softwares, or anytime when you want to install the new softwares, we can just double click or single click the setup files so that it can immediately install in your computer. Now, this is what you just have to remember. It also saves the instructions given for the processing of the instructions again. So always remember that this is the most important thing that you have to remember when I speak about the memory. Just say that memory is the most essential part of the CPU, and without the memory nothing will work, because everything have to be calculated in a bits of memory. Without calculating anything in the memory, nothing would be possible on the screen. All right. So now let me take you with the second point. If I have to say you about the second point, the memory is divided into large number of small parts. So what is this? When I have said you the memory is divided into large parts of computer, I just want to also say you that you always have to remember that, you know, every memory is divided. I mean, whatever memory you see or whatever memory you have in your computer, everything is stored or is divided into large pieces of small memories. For example, I'll say you have okay, we have lot to learn in the computer. Let us take this session as an example. We have lots and lot to talk about computers. Are we doing everything in one particular day? No, isn't it? So we are been calculating everything every day. That means we have divided this large class into every day 1 hour sessions. So memory is also like that. The large amount of memory is divided into small blocks of pieces. So this is what you have to remember, because when we do everything in a large part or when we do everything in the large amount of space, you get confused, because you are not machines, we are human beings, isn't it? We get confused, intend to get confused. So without getting confused, the computer have given us an opportunity, the machine have given us an opportunity where we can bifurcate the large amount of data into small parts. So you always have to remember this as a second point when you're talking about the memory. All right. So now let me take you with the third point. What is the third point here? If you can see, each part's called cell. Each location or cell has a unique address which varies from 0 to memory size -1. And when I say this, everybody have a doubt of what is basically a memory. In memory, when I say each part is called a cell. When I speak about the large amount of data which is being shared, each part of the memory can be called as a cell, and each location or cell has a unique address. For example, we have all this class in one particular thing, that is fundamentals of computers. You have been learning about fundamentals of computers, but can you see that? I mean, is that every day we have the same topic? Yes, the topic is fundamentals of computers, but you have the subheadings, isn't it? So yesterday we were been learning about CPU, day before yesterday we were been learning about the parts of computer, and before we were learning about types of computers, and before we were been learning about inputs and outputs. So I just want to tell you that here when I speak about the computers and its memory, in the memory each cell or each space have their own address, because with the address you can easily calculate and take the instructions from the data or from the space of the memory. So always remember that each and every part of the space are being noted as cell, and these cells have a unique address. Every cell will have a unique address, because without the address we can't just note it or format it. So this is what you have to remember every time when I speak about the memory, and this is the third point. And if you can see here in the last point, each location or cell has a unique address which varies from 0 to memory size -1. When I speak about this, you always have to remember that this data will vary. Actually, every data after getting an address, they vary their calculations from 0 to the memory size -1. I mean, whatever space they have, it will go till -1, or it will calculate its own data -1. So this is what you just have to remember when I speak about the third point of the memory in the computers, that is fundamentals of computers. So now let us go deep into what is memory, what kinds of memory do we have, and what is that we are going to see today in the fundamentals of computers of the memory. So now let us go with the second slide. There are various units which are used to measure computer memory. The first one is bit, smallest unit of computer memory. Second one is byte. We have 8-bit 1 byte, that is 8 bits. 8 smallest unit of computer memories are 1 byte. And now kilobyte, 1024 byte equal to 1 KB. And now megabyte, 1024 kilobytes equal to 1 MB. Gigabyte, 1024 megabyte equal to 1 gigabyte. Terabyte, 1024 GB equal to 1 terabyte. So this is the most important thing that you have to note, because any time when you go for an examination or for an interview, the first thing that they're going to ask in the memory is, can you just vary the difference between byte, bit, and what is the space of, or what is like 1 kilobyte or 1 MB or 1 GB or 1 TB. So all that you just have to remember when you speak about the memory is what and how exactly the space is being calculated. So let me go through the slide once again. Yes, in the first thing that you can see here, you have bit mentioned as the smallest unit of the computer memory, which I can say byte. When I speak about byte, 8 small bits are equal to 1 byte, and byte is mentioned in kilo, mega, giga and tera. Tera is the most advanced space, like 1 terabyte is equal to 1024 gigabytes. That means a lot of space. Alright, so this is about the calculations of the memory and its advanced sections. So now let me take you with the next slide, which is the very most important thing that you have to remember, because till now we were been just talking about what is memory and how is memory, but from now we will be going deep into the section which you may get confused, but please don't. Alright, so now let me show you with the third slide, that is how many types of memories are there. Well, memory is primarily of 3 types. 1. primary memory 2, auxiliary memory 3, cache memory. So, these are the 3 kinds of memories that you have to remember when I am talking about the memories of the computer. Alright. So, when I go ahead in explaining about you the 3 types of memories, the first thing I just want to ask you is how many types of computers are there? You remember that? There are more than 5 types of computers. If you can remember, we have supercomputers, we have digital computers, we have so many kinds of computers. So, these memories will again have relation with those kind of computers. So, before I say all this, I just want you to remember more than the computers, the memory that is being used by the computers, because without installing the memory devices in the CPU, you will not be able to purchase a CPU or operate a CPU. So, every time you have to remember that always calculate the memory first, because without the memory you can't view the data, and the data is something where we call as music, videos, text, PPTs, everything. Alright. So, when you want to view data and save data, the first thing you always have to remember is what kind of memory do you have, or are you updated with the memory that you have in your CPU or your computer. So, always remember that. Alright. So, now let me take you with the next slide, that is the flow chart of the computer memories. Yes. Auxiliary memory provide backup storage, magnetic disks in magnetic tapes. And now when I say I/O processor, it have the same qualities, it deals with the auxiliary memory and the main memory. When I speak about the main memory occupies the central position, communicates directly with the CPU, auxiliary memory and cache memory. And cache memory and main memory deals with the CPU, where cache memory is special high speed memory, current programs and data to CPU at rapid rate. So, this is a flow chart that you have to remember every time, because auxiliary memory, main memory and cache memory are which is very important when you have to speak about the memories of the computer. So, now let me say you the most important thing, that when I speak about the definition of the memory, I was telling you that the data whatever we are, or the instruction that mean followed by the data, is also being stored in the memory. So, how did this happen? That is what the flow chart is being displaying on. So, we have auxiliary memory and the main memory, which have the internal connection of I/O processor, and then we have the main memory and the cache memory. Cache memory is the most advanced memory, where it deals with the programming of the CPU, and it is the most advanced version. Always remember guys, cache memory plays the most important role in the CPU or your computer, because without that no program, or the speedness of the computer will reduce if you don't have the cache memory. Cache memory is the most important thing, and it is very expensive in your computer. Alright. So, now let me take you with the next slide. If you can see, the first one to speak about that we have is primary memory. When I speak about the primary memory holds only those data and instructions on which computer is currently working. It has limited capacity and data get lost when power is switched off. If you can see, primary memory is being leaded with RAM and ROM. And when I say RAM, DRAM and SRAM, the full forms I am going to say you in the next slide. And when I speak about ROM, we have PROM and EPROM. Again, from EPROM, we have the segments bifurcated into EEPROM and UVEPROM. All right. So now, when I go ahead and say you something about the more of the definitions of the primary memory, I just want you to make sure that what is a primary memory. Everybody have this doubt, okay, we have the definition, but what is primary memory? I'll tell you. Primary memory is nothing but it holds only those data and instructions on which computer is currently working. For example, the primary is something where I can say you that when you are reading, you know, or when you just take a textbook and when you see it, you know, for normally you'll go for a parties and you only remember that party but not the people, but you will see the people in the party. So this primary memory is like the people in the party. You don't remember each and every person. Once you come out of the party, you forget everybody. So it is also the same thing. All right. So the primary memory is something which holds the instructions and the memory on the current working of the computer. Once the where, always remember, primary memory will not be stored, because once your computer is switched off, all the primary memory will be lost. All right. So always remember this, because primary memory just helps the computer to run on that particular situation or on that particular time, where it never stores the data into the drives. It just uses the memory, and once the computer is switched off, the entire primary memory will be lost. So always remember this definition: primary memory holds only the data and instructions on which computer is currently working. You can just simply say the current working data or initial working data or ongoing working data is called primary memory. All right. So this is what you just have to remember when I speak about the primary memory. So now let me go deep into what is primary memory and what is this PROM. I have said you EROM. So all that I'll be just explaining you about these in the next slide. So I just want you to see the slide once again. If you can see here, primary memory is generally made up of semiconductor device. These memories are not as fast as registers. The data and instruction required to be processed earlier reside in main memory. It is divided into two subcategories, RAM and ROM. The main features of primary memory which distinguish it from secondary memory are: it is accessed directly by the processor, it is the fastest memory available, each word is stored as well as it is volatile, that is, its contents are lost once power is switched off. Yes. So when I speak about the primary memory, what is it like? Do you know? Yes. It is made up of semiconductor device. It's a basic semiconductor device. Those memories are not as fast as registers. I was talking about registers, I was talking about semiconductors, I was talking about silicon chips when we were talking about the CPU. Aren't we? Yes, we were talking, isn't it? So these primary memories are made up of semiconductor devices, and the memories are not so fast as the registers, because registers are a little bit fast. But when I speak about, yes, the primary memory, it will obviously have the subcategories the main memory actually is being divided for two subcategories. Every time remember, primary memory will give or will make sure it is passing the instructions or the storage into two subcategories, that is RAM and ROM, that is RAM and ROM. So these are the most important things that you have to remember. And primary memory is one of the fastest memory because it gets the instruction directly from the processor. That means, for example, there are something where, I'll tell you a very good example. Sometimes you go and pay the fees in your college, sometimes your parents will go and pay the fees in your college. So when you are paying, your parents are giving to you and you are going to give to the college. But in the primary level, your parents will be directly going to the college and they will be paying the fees. So there is a direct follow up with your parents and the college where you are not involved, or you are involved but as a ghost. Alright. So remember the same in the primary. The processor and the data, this primary semiconductor will be directly dealing with the processor. So when the processor is switched off, the entire memory will be erased. So I can say you, it will have all the binary language, that is, each word is stored. Each word is already stored for only that particular time. That is why we call it as versatile, because it is so big and it is so nice and it is so fast, but once it is switched off, everything will be erased. So that remember that primary memory will have everything, but only for the limited time till your computer is switched on. Alright. So this is all about the primary memory. So let me go now so deep into the primary memory and let us see what do we have. If you can see the slide here, we have RAM. RAM stands for random access memory. The processor accesses all memory addresses directly, irrespective of word length, making storage and retrieval fast. RAM is the fastest memory available and hence most expensive. These two factors imply that RAM is available in very small quantities of up to 1 GB. RAM is volatile but may be of any of these two types. And now, what is this RAM? So when I speak about the RAM, the most important thing that you have to remember when I am speaking about the RAM is, it is the rectangular thing that will be placed in your CPU. Without the RAM, your computer won't run, because it is a primary memory that you have to remember, because without the RAM, nothing will work. And the speed of the computer will also be calculated sometimes with the RAM, because when you go for My Computer and hit a right click button on your mouse, the properties will be displayed. In the properties, you can see how much RAM does you have, and the minimum amount of RAM was 1 GB right now in this generation. Previously we also had 512 MB RAMs, but now we have 1 GB RAM starting, and the versions are DDR1, DDR2 and DDR3. Right now this generation we are into DDR3, and the 4 GB is one of the best put up RAM in your CPU to make it the primary memory perfect. Alright. So now let us see what is DRAM, which can also be called as dynamic RAM. Each memory cell in dynamic RAM is made of one transistor and one capacitor, which store 1 bit of data. However, the cell starts losing its charge, and hence data stored in less than 1000th second of a second, so it needs to be refreshed 1000 times a second, which takes up processor time. However, due to small size of each cell, one dynamic RAM can have large number of cells. Primary memory of most of the personal computers is made up of dynamic RAM. So, when I speak about dynamic RAM, the most important thing that you have to remember when it comes to DRAM, that is dynamic RAM, is it is a semiconductor, or you can just simply remember that it is made up of transistor and one capacitor, because when I speak about the memory, the primary memories I am talking about, those are made up of semiconductors. But initially when we go deep into DRAM, that is dynamic RAM, these are made up of transistors and a capacitor. They will have a small transistor and a capacitor where they can only store a bit of data, a bit. So, when we have to refresh it 1001 times, it is really not possible. So, there are few cells which can be made sure that they refresh this cell obviously automatically. So, you don't need to refresh all 1001 times, but this makes sure that the RAM is active and it gives a proper instructions, which these are something which are used to make the transactions of the matrix fast in your computer. So, this is the most important thing in the hardware, and you will get to know more about DRAM once you have the chip in your hand, because DRAM is something which is made up of a very small transistor and a capacitor. When I speak about the capacitor, it have the electricity passing through it. So, always remember that these things are a very delicate holdings which you can find only in the motherboard of the computer. Alright. So, in brief, I will be explaining you about what are these again. Alright. So, now let me take you with the next slide, that is SRAM. Yes. Each cell is SRAM, that is made up of a flip-flop that stores one bit. It retains its bit till the power supply is on and doesn't need to be refreshed like DRAM. It also has shorter read-write circles as compared to DRAM. SRAM is used in specialized applications. So, you can see the diagram here. We have SRAM with an amazing big chip, and we have DRAM, which you can find in every personal computers. So, this is what is a basic system of RAM and its importance. So, now let me speak about the most important thing as a RAM. When I speak about the RAM, the only thing that you have to remember every time is what and how will the RAM help your computers. The RAMs will be obviously calculating the pieces of bits in data, and it will be sharing its information and calculations together, and then they give it to the computer or the processor back so that the processor will display it on your monitor. So, this primary memory is the most important thing, because without the primary levels you can never ever perform anything, because the memory is the most important thing in the computer and its fundamentals. Now, let me take you with the next slide, that is what is a ROM. When I speak about ROM, ROM stands for read-only memory. As the name suggests, ROM can only be read by the processor. New data cannot be written into ROM. Data to be stored into ROM is written during the manufacturing phase itself. They contain data that does not need to be altered, like booting, sequence of a computer, or algorithmic tables for mathematical applications. ROM is slower and hence cheaper than RAM. It retains its data even when power is switched off, that is, it is not volatile. ROM cannot be altered the way RAM can be put. Technologies are available to program these types of ROMs. And now, when I speak about the ROM, I just want you to remember some important things about your body, okay? So when you are born, obviously you have 10 fingers, isn't it? You obviously have 10 fingers, 2 eyes, 1 nose, 1 mouth, and 2 ears, and 2 hands, and 2 legs. So these are by manufacturing, I mean by birth you were born like that, alright, which can't be again replaced or redone, because ROM is something which have inbuilt manufacturing. I mean whatever the ROM should consist, that is already been given to the ROM while it is manufacturing. That means when it is creating itself, they put whatever the ROM does into it, so that it's no need to, you know, reconstruct again or something. Yes, nowadays the technology have come where we can reconstruct the ROM and rewrite something on the ROM, but ROM is basically something which have the initial memory and actually which is very slow comparative to the RAM, because ROM only does the initiative step of algorithms, as I have said you, tables for mathematical applications, and booting sequence. Obviously your system sometimes boot automatically. What does this do? Who does that? ROM does it. So these have the initial information already given in the bottom of its manufacturing, so that ROM will be doing its own job because it is being instructed by its default. So you don't need to worry about ROM, and ROM cannot be rewritten. But nowadays the technology have come into the market where the ROMs can also be rewritten on that. Alright, so this is what a ROM is, and ROM stands for read only memory. Read only memory, that means it reads only the memory which is already been into it. What is RAM? Random access memory. Random, any memory can be accessed through RAM. What is ROM? Read only, I mean you can only read that memory which have on the ROM. RAM, random access memory, you have n number of memory that can be viewed through the RAM. But remember guys, all these two are the primary memories. Will the computer switch off, your entire memory will be lost. So always remember that these are the primary memories that I am talking about. So when I speak about the ROM, we have also two types of, you know, and there are more types of memories that you have to remember into the ROM also, because these are being bifurcated into so many things. And now, what is PROM? Programmable ROM. PROM can be programmed using a special hardware device called PROM programmer or the PROM burner. Alright, when I speak about programmable ROM, I always just want to tell you that this ROM is basically programmed using a special hardware. For example, you have a separate hardware put in your CPU, obviously ROM will be making sure that it programs the hardware. And for example, you are installing something, or you are installing the sound card, or you are installing the graphic card, or you have so many equipments in the computer that we have joysticks, we have etc etc. Whenever you keep that, this ROM will make sure it calculates the time and defines what is required for the computer, and it defines automatic calculations for the ROM. So this is the most important thing that you have to remember at that particular time in the ROM. Alright, so now let me show you the second point in the ROM, that is, if you can see, we have EPROM, that is Erasable Programmable Rom. EPROM can be erased and then programmed using special electrical signals or UV rays. EPROMs that can be erased using UV rays are called UVEPROM, and those that can be erased using electrical signals are called EEPROM. However, handling electrical signals is easier and safer than UV rays. And now EPROM, which can be called as Erasable Programmable Rom. When I say about EPROM, the only thing that I want to see about is these programs are being handled, or these ROMs are being basically, it's a part of ROM, but yes, it is being handled by the two types of rays, that is UV rays and electric signals. So when I speak about the electric signals are more safer than UV rays, because once if you touch the UV rays, your entire skin, or when you are trying to repair your ROM, or when you are trying to take out your ROM, when it is on the process of UV, you will be in risk, because UVs are very dangerous compared to the electrical signals. So these erasable programmable ROM will make sure that it is being calculating its signals. I mean, you know, the signals whichever are being received by the electric signals. I mean, the basically current programming will be done by this EPROM, and you have to make sure that you are using it in the electric signals way. Now UV rays is a new trend, but again electric signals would be more safer than the UV thing. So remember that EPROM makes sure that it's doing the current, I mean the electricity programming, and which can be erased again once the power is switched off, because when the power is switched off, obviously there will be no current flowing in your computer. So when there is no current, EPROM is erased, alright. So this is what you just have to remember, and it comes under the primary computer, or the primary. When I speak about the primary computer, yes, you have the primary memory, and when I speak about the primary memory, we have RAM and ROM, and we speak about ROM, we have PROM and EPROM. PROM is programmable ROM, which it basically calculates what device is being connected into the CPU, and it try to defines that to the machine. And EPROM is something which deals with the electricity and the programming of the current when in the running of the computer. So this is what the basic thing that you have to remember when I speak about the primary memory. Now let's see the next slide. Let us go with the next slide. We have three different kinds of memory we were talking about: the primary memory and the auxiliary memory. The second one is auxiliary memory we are talking about. So now when I speak about auxiliary memory is the lowest cost, highest capacity and slowest access storage in a computer system. It is where programs and data are kept for long-term storage, and when not in immediate use, such memories tend to occur in two types: sequential access. Data must be accessed in a linear sequence, and direct access. Data may be accessed in any sequence. The most common sequential storage device is a magnetic tape, whereas direct access devices include rotating drums, discs, CD-ROMs, and DVD-ROMs. So this is auxiliary memory. When I speak about auxiliary memory, you always have to remember that auxiliary memory is the lowest cost. Yes, we have been learning about the primary memory, which is high rate, and we were talking about cache memory, which is also costly, but when you speak about the auxiliary memory, it is the lowest cost that we can find in the computer. And what is this? I think you already have got the examples and what is an auxiliary memory called as. Yes, these are called as CDs, DVD-ROMs we were looking at. So all these come under the auxiliary memory, and auxiliary memory is the low cost and highest capacity and slowest access. See, the problem is when you keep a DVD or a CD into your CPU or your laptop, first thing that you can find is the access very slow. I mean, to read or to to get that CD or a DVD into your computer or to access that, it will take a lot of time. I mean, now in this generation we have a pen drive, when we keep it you already get displayed. So all these, when you keep the CDs, rotating drums and all, you know, into the ROM, obviously when you have see this, when you see this, it takes a lot of time for accessing. So that is what I have mentioned in this slide. It is easy to, you know, it is very easy to have the capacity because it have the highest capacity, but it's slow to access. It is a good thing because your computer is been calculating the auxiliary memory. That means your computer have a capability of using the auxiliary capacity. So now you just have to remember what are the more details of auxiliary memory. When I show you that, I just want to give you a basic example, you know, because everybody wants to know what are auxiliary memories. Alright, so I just want to give you an example here. If you can just see the slide, we have flash, floppy disk, zip disk, CD, CD-R, DVD-R, DVD, storage type, smart media, removable hard drive, micro drive, and the memory stick. So these are few examples of auxiliary memory when I am telling you. Alright, so I'll just go quick because auxiliary memory is nothing but which is something which is being given by you to the computer. So this is basically have a high capacity but low in the access. These are the few examples which I have shown you, and when it comes to the last one, we have, if you can see the slide here, we have cache memory. The cache memory is a very high speed expensive piece of memory which is used to speed up the memory retrieval process. Due to its higher cost, the CPU comes with a relatively small amount of cache compared with the main memory. Without cache memory, every time the CPU requests for data, it would send the request to the main memory, which would then be sent back across the system to the CPU. This is a slow process. The idea of introducing cache is that this extremely fat memory would store data that is frequently accessed, and if possible the data that is around it. This is to achieve the quickest possible response time to the CPU. Alright, so when I speak about cache memory, you only have to remember one thing, that is cache memory is just used to speed up the memory retrieval process. For example, we have so many memories that are being reviewed, or every time when you open up the system, the OS has been installed, this application is being installed, and every time you just can't go and install the memory, isn't it? So cache memory will make sure that this is being stored in the cache memory, and this is very expensive too. Nowadays it is being given inbuilt in your computers so that it retrieves, I mean it takes the memory which have to be used regularly, and it calculates the things. So this is the most important thing that you have to remember in cache memory, and I just want to give you a small example, because before I go ahead and close the class, I just want to tell you that cache memory is the most important thing, because without the cache memory you really can't use your system, because again you have to reinstall the applications whatever required and whatever are being used. So cache memory is something which holds back the information that is being reused every time when you open the computer. So this is a reusable memory and a very powerful memory that can be used. So I just want to give you what is this and a basic example of a cache memory. If you can see here, we have the cache memory shown here. So this is what you just have to remember. So cache memory is one of the most important things that will be found nearby the RAM slot. So that is what is a cache memory. So that is what we have been learning today. that is the memory and its descriptions. So when I speak about the memory, there are three types, that is primary, auxiliary and the cache memory. So these three memories, I think you have a proper examples with them too. So I request you not to forget this and always try to revise whatever we have spoke about the computers, because computers and its technologies are most confusing things, but when you go for an interview, these are the most important things that you have to review back and reset yourself as the things. So without memory you can never go forward in using your computers. So thank you so much for listening to the class and being so patient in understanding the class. That means a lot, and have a good day. And I am Kranth and I am a trainer. Thank you.